The VapePassion Show, episode 15. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. This one is going to be a little tough for me because I just got a cold, so I'm not feeling so good. My throat's a little messed up, scratchy, and I'm coughing. So yeah, that sucks. I've been sick for a few days now, so I haven't really been able to vape. So I got some new stuff in. I got the Chieftain Stentorian from Wattage, and I got the Conqueror RTA, also from Wattage, and Wattage's Clapton Parallel coils. So they're all still wrapped. I got them in yesterday, and I'm just leaving them wrapped because I know if I unwrap them, I'm gonna start vaping on it all, and I really need to get over this cold, and my throat is killing me. So that has to stay in the wrapper for now, but I'm excited to use it. And so last week I published 2 e-juice reviews, both of them for perfectvape.com. I reviewed their Cereal Smash and Dairy Maiden e-juices, and both of them I liked a lot. They sent me 5 flavors in total, and I planned on doing those other 3 last week, but then I got sick. So it just doesn't make sense for me to review e-juices when I'm sick, because I'm just not going to get the full flavor. So those are on hold for now. Hopefully I can get to those this week or next week. Okay, so I want to just mention some comments that I got on some of my videos last week. One comment was from Rubik's Cube. He asked me if I've heard of the e-N-Joint from a company in the Netherlands. They sell flavored disposable e-pens and mood-changing e-juice. That's stuff I'm really interested in. I actually recorded a review for a company called Vapor Boost about a year ago. That's when I first started getting into reviews. And I reviewed their e-juice called Sweet Dreams. It's an e-juice designed to help you sleep. It has melatonin and L-theanine, Earl Grey, and some other ingredients, and I'm really interested in stuff like that. So I looked into these guys, and they have a bunch of different mood-changing e-juices. So they have Daydream, which is designed for relaxation and focus. They have Drowsy, which is designed for deep relaxation. They have one called Focus, which is for calming and focus. They have Sensual, which is designed to relax the mind and body. One called Relief, which is designed for inflammation and muscle relaxation. And then finally they have one called Relax, which is just for overall relaxation. So those all sound really cool to me. And you can get these Sigalike batteries for $9 each, which is a pretty good deal, I think, for what they are. I haven't ordered any yet, but I think I would like to. So yeah, I just want to thank Rubik's Cube for mentioning that to me. Then I had another comment from George Gonzalez. We were talking about affordable e-juice, and he mentioned that his wife is one of those people who has never moved away from tobacco flavors. She buys a flavor, it's just called tobacco, from a company called Fumi Vape. They're a USA company with an ISO lab, and he mentioned to me that this tobacco flavor tastes exactly like a cigarette, and it's only $7 for a 15 ml bottle, which is a pretty good price. So I'm really interested in trying this because I've never tried a tobacco flavor that tastes like real tobacco or like a real cigarette. I don't really want to taste what a cigarette tastes like anymore because it's been since 2010 since I've smoked a cigarette. But I want to find an e-juice that tastes like a cigarette for the fact that I would be able to recommend it to people, to former smokers who are new to vaping, so that they can transition into vaping more easily using something that resembles as close as possible to a cigarette. So yeah, I'll probably pick up a bottle of that sometime. I'm in no rush, but I am interested in it. So thanks, George, for the comment. So now I want to talk about some advocacy stuff. As I'm sure you've heard, the FDA has released their deeming regulations for tobacco. They're deeming electronic cigarettes as tobacco. They put out a press release on May 5th, on Wednesday, confirming what we already knew was going to happen, that e-cigarettes were going to be classified as tobacco, which gives them the authority to regulate it like tobacco products. So they're saying that the new laws take effect 90 days after the ruling, which was on May 5th. So 90 days from then will be August 5th. At that time, no vaping products in the United States will be able to be sold to anyone under the age of 18. It requires age verification by photo ID, so I don't know how that's going to work online. That's an interesting one. Not allowing the selling of covered tobacco products in vending machines. I don't really know where there are vending machines that sell electronic cigarettes, maybe a strip club or something, but a kid wouldn't be in there. And not allowing the distribution of free samples. So that's interesting too. I wonder if that means vape shops won't have testers out anymore. That would really suck. And in addition to that, electronic cigarettes will have to be made compliant according to the regulations already set for tobacco products. That means that manufacturers need to submit product listings to the FDA. Electronic cigarette companies will have to report ingredients and harmful and potentially harmful constituents of their product. It requires pre-market review and authorization of new tobacco products by the FDA. It places health warnings on product packages and advertisements, and it means manufacturers cannot sell any modified risk tobacco products, meaning they can't label an e-juice, for example, light, low, or mild. In their press release, the FDA does state that there will be staggered timelines, so manufacturers can continue selling their products for up to 2 years while they submit their application, and an additional year while the FDA reviews that application. So it doesn't sound good. The way the deeming regulations are laid out right now, the predicate date is still 2007, so anything that has come out after 2007 is effectively banned. So the Tom Cole amendment that was just approved a couple of weeks ago, it was approved by the Appropriations Committee, but that doesn't mean it's law. That approval only made it so that it was possible to be included in that Agriculture Appropriations Bill. That bill needs to go forth and be voted on in the House of Representatives. We don't know when that's going to happen. And Tom Cole, after these FDA regulations came out, he responded by saying, "The FDA's announcement today that it plans to regulate all tobacco products is just another example of the Obama administration's regulatory overreach and nanny state mentality. This regulation takes an overly broad approach to regulating these products. While we can all agree that tobacco products should not be marketed to children, I still believe that my bipartisan amendment, recently approved by the Appropriations Committee, provides the same framework for new tobacco products without needlessly subjecting small businesses to unnecessary regulations and without treating law-abiding adults like naive children." And so this amendment, which is HR 2058, this is one of the things CASA is really pushing people to take action on. What they recommend is that you call, write, or send an email to your representative and urge them to co-sponsor and support HR 2058. So as for CASA's response to this, they put out a post. They're basically telling everyone that this isn't the end. Just keep calm, let them look at everything. This requires some people with some legal expertise to really dig into it, because this isn't just one document. A lot of the things within these regulations have rules that relate to other documents, like the Family Smoking Prevention and Tobacco Control Act. So their experts have to look at the things that are being said within the document as they relate to other documents, and that's just going to take some time. So as for now, go support that amendment, HR 2058. Something that's getting passed around a lot right now is this petition on whitehouse.gov. The description of the petition is "Overturn the FDA's ruling on e-cigarette classification as a tobacco product." So it couldn't hurt to fill out something like that. It takes a minute or less just to fill it out. I don't really think anything like that is going to be very beneficial, but you never know. Take 30 seconds out of your day and go do that. But don't let that make you think that you've actually done something to help. If you really want to help, you need to call or email your representative and ask them to support that bill that CASA mentioned. So something interesting that I saw on Dr. Farsellino's website, what he thinks happened is that FDA officials were legally obliged to follow this path. They weren't allowed to make changes to that regulation, because even if they wanted to, there's already established regulations on tobacco products, so they can't change that. Once they deemed electronic cigarettes as a tobacco product, it had to be restricted in all the same ways as tobacco products already were. Hopefully as time goes on, we can get a new classification for electronic cigarettes, which would allow the FDA to regulate it in different ways than traditional tobacco. So Clive Bates, he actually wrote an article right before the FDA regulations came out on something called compliance fallacy. So he wanted to find out how easy it would be to sidestep the European Union and the US FDA regulations, to find out he bought some high-strength e-liquid from the internet. E-liquid that it wouldn't be allowed under the TPD. So he says that regulators should never assume that people, consumers and suppliers, will comply with whatever regulations they impose. After these regulations are put in place, the supply chain is going to reconfigure itself, and many people are going to adopt workarounds. One example being that nicotine liquids will be sold separately to flavored liquids. Consumers can buy those and then put them together. And unfortunately for everyone, the new supply chain, it might be more dangerous, it could be less accountable, lower quality, and less taxable than the system that came before it, the system that was in place before we had regulations. And he mentions here that if you don't believe that compliance fallacy is real, look no further than Canada and Australia, where nicotine is pretty much banned, but easily accessible through a distorted supply chain. So to test how easy it is to work around these regulations, he made a purchase of 99% strength nicotine, which is really strong. And the new EU directive limits nicotine to 2%, which is 20 milligrams. So far exceeded that. He searched the internet, found a few sites providing the product and chose one at random. He got it 6 days later, and the package was labeled as vegetable glycerin, which it isn't. And it really could have been labeled anything. So it's pretty easy to see that there's going to be workarounds for this. People can buy nicotine online, they'll get it in a packaging that won't get flagged, and they're gonna make their own e-juice. And you know, if you make DIY e-juice, that's not gonna be a bad thing for you. But what about these people who are new to vaping? It's gonna scare people away, or it's not gonna be safe, because people are gonna buy a product that they don't understand how to use. It's going to make vaping more dangerous, it's going to be more difficult for consumers, and people are just going to find a way to get what they want, and businesses are going to help them do that. And if you look around at any of the forums right now that these FDA regulations have been, the deeming regulations have been announced, people are just stocking up on flavorings and devices and nicotine. And like nicotine that's going to last for like 7 to 10 years. That much worth of nicotine. So before the regulations are even going to be enforced, people are already sidestepping the rules. The way it's laid out right now, the FDA has just really screwed it up. Okay, so I've talked enough about that, I think. Hopefully you guys are all still here. So now I want to talk about a new product. Finally, Aspire has come out with the next iteration of their Nautilus tank. The Nautilus Mini was my first tank when I started vaping again in 2015. And I love that tank. I gave my original one to my brother, and I missed it so much that I went out and bought another one. And now the Nautilus X is out. Well, it's not out yet, but it's coming out. I already see places taking pre-orders. It's going to be like $22, I think, $25, something like that. So this tank is a 2 milliliter tank, which is TPD compliant. It has a leak-proof design, they say. It has a new U-Tech coil system, which means the coil has a U-shaped chamber. The air passes through the canthal coils twice before being inhaled, which they say gives it really good flavor. And these coils are 1.5 ohms and rated for use at 14 to 22 watts. So they don't mention anything about it being a mouth-to-lung tank, but I'm assuming it is because it's the Nautilus, and that's what the Nautilus Mini was known for. It's a top-filled tank, so that's good. It has a Delrin drip tip, but it looks like you can't use your own drip tips on it, not from what I can see. And it has an adjustable top airflow, that being the only thing that I think kind of sucks. Because if you've ever used a top airflow tank, it usually takes away flavor. But you know, with the new design of that U-shaped coil, I don't know, maybe the top airflow isn't going to be that big of a deal. We'll just have to see. I'm thinking that they had to do that top airflow so that it prevents leaking, which makes the tank also TPD compliant in addition to that 2 milliliter maximum fill. But yeah, I think it looks really cool, and I'm actually excited for this one. Okay, so moving on, vapingpost.com, they covered an e-juice company called Jack Vapor, who just presented their latest release of e-juice at an exhibition called Innovaping Days 2016 in Paris, called Clear Steam. I guess is already pretty popular in the UK, and it's allowing people to vape in places where vaping is forbidden because it doesn't produce any vapor. It still gives the user a throat hit, which is very present, but it produces no vapor at all. Jack Vapor, they aren't releasing the recipe, of course, but they have stated that it's 100% PG, and it comes in 5 different flavors. So I wonder if it has a smell. Anyway, that's pretty interesting. If you want to vape in public, vape in places where you shouldn't, like work, in the movie theater, at a restaurant, but you don't want to get caught blowing clouds, that clear steam looks like it might be a good product. Okay, so in other news, it looks like there are a bunch of counterfeit or low-grade LG HD2s hitting the market. These are 18650 batteries. This was all prompted by a blog post from batterybro.com, who was asked by a vendor to test a battery, an LG HG2, to find out if it in fact was a fake. So they went through this whole process of trying to determine if it was a fake by comparing them to batteries that they knew were authentic. They ran through a huge long process, and they wrote it all out. So if you want to go to their website and read that, you should, but I'm just going to sum it up. So there are tips at the end of the article if you want to investigate your own cells, which is not just for HG2s, but for any battery really, as long as you can compare it to an authentic battery. Something you can do is you can look at the color. If it's slightly off, it might be a fake. You can look at the washer or the insulator ring to see if it has a different texture. For example, the HG2s, the fakes, were shiny, while the authentics are matte. You can check the color of the metal under where the washer would normally be. You can look at the grooves under the top cap. If they're small and thin or slightly larger than the authentics, that's a sign of fake. And you can look at what markings the cell has. So markings aren't a clear sign because those can be faked as well. But if they're faded or smeared, it could be a sign that whoever is making these fake batteries are using cheap equipment to make these markings. So if they are faded or smeared, that might also be a sign that they're fake. Some other signs would be testing the cell's performance. What you could do is if you have a charger that has a milliamp hour readout, for example the XTAR VC2, that one can show you charge capacity, and if your cells don't reach the maximum charge that they say they can, they might actually be a lower quality battery. And another performance test would be just simply comparing it to other batteries that you use in your mods, seeing if they have long runtime, or if the batteries you think might be fakes, if they have a large amount of voltage sag. So Battery Mooch, he's been posting on the electronic cigarette subreddit with some of his own test results, and he basically came to the same conclusion of Battery Bros, that the bad HG2s are pretty much identical in appearance to the genuine HG2s, but they have a different white top ring insulator. The bad batteries are shiny and smooth, and the good ones are matte or textured. From his test on the fakes, he found that they're basically really crappy 10 amp batteries and shouldn't be used above 30 watts. So if you have those and you want to keep them, don't run them above 30 watts and don't push more than 10 amps through them. He recommends not using them at all. So a couple of places who have been reported to have been selling these are XTAR Direct, Vape NW, and IMR Batteries. IMR Batteries is actually offering replacements. So if you got them from there, return them and get some authentic batteries. Okay, so I saw this thread on Reddit titled, "Which of your box mods has stood the test of time?" I thought this one was really interesting because I wonder this all the time myself. I have some mods that I really like, but out of all of the mods that I've owned, the one that I always return to is the IPv4. It's not what I would say is something that could handle a lot of abuse. Maybe it could. I've never put it through a lot of abuse, so I wouldn't know. But it just works the way I want it to and the way I expect it to every time. I never have a problem with it. So that is always my go-to mod. If you look through this thread on Reddit, the one that comes up most often and a lot of times is the Sigelli 150. So if you're looking for something that has been around for a while and you know it's going to work for a long time, a Sigelli 150 might be something to look into. I've never owned one, but I always wanted one, and I think they just look really good and they look durable. And 150 watts, you know, that's plenty. I'm never gonna vape 150 watts. But some other examples that were mentioned throughout the post were the IPv3 Li, the Parallel Titan mod, the MVP 3.0 Pro, the Rio Grande, VaporShark RDNA 40, and it seems like all VaporShark products are pretty well built, the SX Mini M Class, and the VTC Mini. And one thing that I think probably should be mentioned here, although I haven't personally used it, would be a Provari, because you just always hear about Provari users talking about how durable and how long lasting those mods are. So yeah, there's a good list of mods there. If you're looking for something that you really want to last a long time, consider picking one of those up. Okay, let's move on. So this is one that I came across on Instagram from the user D's Vapes. His name is Dallas Smith from Pennsylvania. He posts a lot of really cool coil art, and he recently posted a video showing this clever setup that he created using magnets and a bolt. This is designed to help him forego using crappy swivels that tend to lock up when you're building Clapton coils or similar coils like that. So he's got one large magnet attached to it looks like a board. That's a 95-pound pull magnet, and then 6 smaller magnets, which are 6-pound magnets. They're all stacked together, and then there's a nut. It's a metal nut, so the nut doesn't actually come in contact with the magnets, but it has a space between it, but the magnets are so strong that it holds the nut. So you attach your coil wire to it, and there's no risk of locking up like it would with a fishing swivel. If you're the kind of person who makes Clapton coils and you're tired of swivels binding, check out this method. Magnets can be a little bit pricey. I guess it just depends on where you get it. But I did see a comment from someone who said that they paid only $13 at Home Depot for the exact same setup. That was a 95-pound big magnet and 2 packs of 3 6-pound magnets. But yeah, $13 for that setup, that's really good. I don't even make Claptons, but I want to do it just because it looks cool. Okay, so let's get into some other news. So Imperial Tobacco, the big tobacco company who makes blues, they created a new consumer advocacy website called 95%.org. They've been sending out tweets asking people to share their vaping story. Something like this is actually what a lot of people would consider astroturfing, meaning that it's fake manufactured activism as opposed to a true grassroots effort. And astroturfing, especially from big tobacco, that doesn't look good for us, and it's just not something we want happening in our industry and in our community. So CASA, they released a statement about the website, and they mentioned that consumers should be aware that if you provide a testimonial, a photo, or if you offer your contact information to 95%.org, that information is owned by Fontum, the parent company, and can be used however they wish. That can be used in advertising, whatever they want to do. And all of this is buried in their disclaimer in the fine print of their website. You would be giving them the right to publish your data and use it for promotional or any other purpose that they want to use it for. And CASA says that astroturfing has a largely negative perception from the very people we're trying to persuade, which is the general public, legislators, and policymakers. So at this point in time, they're recommending that consumers do not participate with 95%.org. Okay, so let's talk about this video posted to YouTube that I'm actually surprised is still up. People are on Reddit and everywhere have been reporting it and trying to get it taken down. What it is how to make a homemade hookah pin. This is from an underage kid showing other underage kids how to make a DIY vaporizer so that they can learn how to do vape tricks. And they can't do that using a real vaporizer because they're too young to buy one. So what he does in this video is he strips a USB wire to make 2 leads. He places a piece of sponge between the wires to use as a wick, and then plugs the USB wire into a 5-volt USB wall adapter to give it power. The wire is placed inside of a prescription medicine bottle to capture the vapor, and he punctures a hole in both the cap and the bottle to close it, and then in one end he puts a straw so that he can suck the vapor out of there. This is scary. I think this video has me convinced that e-cigs should be made available to people under the age of 18, because can you imagine all of the toxins that this kid is inhaling? First, from what I can find online about USB wire, the conductive wire is usually made of copper, coated copper, which is very dangerous to inhale. And so that's bad enough, but on top of it, he's vaping the chemicals from a sponge. Sponges are usually made out of plastic. This kid is probably doing some really serious damage to his health, and he won't even know about it until it's too late. And he's teaching other kids how to do this. I think this could potentially be one of the things that convinces me that e-cigarettes should be made available to at least 16 and up, because that's about the age when kids start smoking, I think. And man, it would be so much better for them to have access to a real electronic cigarette instead of trying to make something like this. So dangerous. Alright, this next one is a video coming from SX Mini Yeehee on YouTube. They published a video showing that their SX Mini Q class has a maximum output of 200 watts, and it actually can do 200 watts using two 18650 batteries. They connect it to a digital multimeter, a high precision resistor, and an RMS clamp meter. So if you scroll to the end here, you can see them firing it at 200 watts. They're pushing it at 5.82 volts and get an amp output of 35.98, which equals about 209 watts. So yeah, it looks like you can get 200 and plus 200 watts out of two 18650 batteries, but I don't think that's really the question, because you can get much more than that out of two 18650 batteries. You could probably get that out of one 18650 battery, but that doesn't mean it's safe. That's putting some serious strain on those batteries, and even in a regulated device. I personally don't believe it's safe, and I definitely wouldn't trust lower quality batteries at that kind of wattage. But yeah, here's a device that actually can put out that kind of wattage if you build your atomizer correctly. Okay, so I only had one science and research article to talk about this week. This one is titled "Cigarette Smoke, but not Electronic Cigarette Aerosol, Activates a Stress Response in Human Coronary Artery Endothelial Cells in Culture." That's a long one. Okay, so this research team, they tested cigarette smoke and vapor against human coronary artery endothelial cells. They looked at gene expression on these cells to see if there was a stress response. So they used a machine to extract smoke from a cigarette, and they also used the same machine to extract vapor from an electronic cigarette using an output of 10.8 watts at 4.2 volts using 18 milligram nicotine e-liquid. They did 5 cycles of 5 seconds heat with at least 10 seconds in between each puff. Their conclusions found that vapor didn't cause any of the same stresses that cigarette smoke did. So what their conclusion is that e-cigarettes are a useful substitute for conventional cigarettes, and they're likely to reduce immediate tobacco-related harm, at least in respect to cardiovascular harm. So good news there. Okay, so now for some news around the country. So California, the governor just recently signed in a tough anti-vapor bill. Governor Jerry Brown signed 5 bills, tobacco-related bills, into law on Wednesday last week. That was May 4th, including SBX 2-5, which essentially treats tobacco-free vapor products as tobacco. So with the FDA regulations, I guess that doesn't really matter anymore. But another bill that he signed in was SBX 2-7, which changes the smoking age in the state to 21. And because electronic cigarettes are now classified as tobacco, that means electronic cigarettes, you now have to be 21 to buy them in California. This also means that California's existing indoor smoking and workplace smoking restrictions apply to vaping. So yeah, a pretty big step back for California. And now for some good news, finally, to close this vlog out. Scotland is now saying that e-cigs are allowed in hospital grounds. So the NHS, Greater Glasgow and Clyde's Director of Public Health, Dr. Amelia Crichton, announced that e-cigarettes can now be used on NHS grounds by patients, visitors, and staff. This announcement was made on April 21st. It's important to note that while it can be used on hospital grounds, it's still banned from inside hospital buildings. But I think that's fair. Dr. Crichton was quoted as saying, "We have seen the percentage of people who smoke fall from 37.5% to 25% over the last 10 years. I believe allowing e-cigarette use is the next tool in that fight, and it will play a role in reducing that figure even more." So while the United States government continues to take backward steps, other countries are moving forward. But you know, it's good. It's great that other countries are moving forward. It's good for them, and I think eventually it will be good for us too. Okay, that's gonna do it for this episode. You'll find the show notes on my website, VapePassion.com. If you want to support the show, consider donating to my Patreon page. You can find that at patreon.com/VapePassion. That's patreon.com. Every little bit helps. You can follow me on Twitter and Facebook at VapePassion. And if you're listening to the podcast, you can find me on YouTube at VapePassion. And if you're on YouTube, you can subscribe to my podcasts. Just look for the VapePassion Show. I'm on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play, or you can just find the links on my website there in the sidebar there. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach me at alex@vapepassion.com, or you can just submit the contact form on my website. All right, so thanks for checking out the show. I really do appreciate it, and I hope to see you all next week.